to the gentleman who helped me get this set up. This morning, I am going to share with you a shortened version of the book of Esther. Esther, I'm sure you've read about her. She became an orphan when her parents died, and so she went to live with Uncle Mordecai. Now, the king at the time, whose Persian name was Xerxes, was in the 3rd year of his reign when he decided to show off his domain. For 180 days, he put the kingdom on display. Then he called for a 7-day feast. At the feast, Xerxes got high on his wine, and he commanded his servants, "Go find Queen Vashti and bring her to me." He wanted all the men in the kingdom to see that she was quite beautiful, but also quite dutiful. But this time, she refused to agree. Xerxes, the king, was furious. With anger, he burned. In front of his leaders, he felt he had been spurned, so he decided to consult his experts. He asked them what should be done to the king for disobeying the command of her husband and king. Well, one man said, "The queen's conduct will be known to all women. Now, they'll despise commands that they're given. You know what our wives will say? The queen had her way." Then they'll expect that this disrespect should somehow be overlooked or forgiven. So the king agreed to issue a royal decree. The man is the ruler of his own household. In every province of the Persians and Medes, that's exactly how it will be. Queen Vashti was then banned from the king's presence, so she could be replaced, and another woman would someday take her place. A contest for a new queen was needed, so the servants quickly proceeded to be sure that one's suitable. Each contestant must be beautiful, but they made that happen, to be sure, with a sequence of beauty treatments that would be provided each one. Yes, 12 months with treatments of beauty, and the king would announce his choice when it's done. Now, Esther was among the contestants, and each day her uncle Mordecai would pace by and by till the announcement would be released. Turns out Esther won by winning the favor of everyone, especially Xerxes the king. He gave a banquet in her honor and set a royal crown on her head. Now truly the Lord had planned this award, as you'll discover from what lies ahead. One day, Mordecai sat at the gate, and he heard 2 men, the king's men. They would relate their plan for the king's assassination. He didn't let it fester. He reported it to Esther. So she then told the king, who did his kingly thing and had those men executed, those would-be killers. Esther made sure the fact was not obscure, that Mordecai deserved the credit for uncovering that evil plot. King Xerxes, of course, was grateful for Mordecai, but Mordecai's face and name, he simply forgot. So King Xerxes promoted Haman to the position of the top court official. Here's Haman. Haman hated the Jews, so he made a command and a law to demand this condition. Each man must now proceed to bow whenever they see the king or me, meaning Haman. And that's according to the king's decree. Of course, it was always his plan to kill the Jews in the land. So Haman reported to the king, "Not all obey your law. Those who won't and those who don't should be destroyed right away." He even offered money. He offered 10,000 talents of silver to bribe the king to see it his way. The king gave Haman his ring. That gave him permission to do anything. Concerning those Jews who steadfastly refused to bend their knees, the king told Haman, Keep your money and do as you please. Mordecai sent a message to Esther. You need to go speak to the king. Esther explained, everyone knows there's a simple fate for anyone who enters the gate to approach the king uninvited. It's death. It's been 30 days since he's called me his way, so I'm not so sure I should give it a try. I wish you had not asked this, Mordecai. But Mordecai's next words to her went like this. Don't think because you are in the king's house, you'll escape this decree of his. Who knows but that you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Esther said, my family and my heritage I cherish. Then she said these famous words, I'll go, and if I perish, I perish. So it was when the king saw Esther the queen, she found favor in his sight. He held out his scepter in his hand and said, whatever you wish will be given to you, even to half of my kingdom and land. The king said, but he continued to give whatever you request. I want you blessed. You're my queen. Nothing is too big in the least. So she invited both king and Haman to come to another feast. Now that made Haman grow in confidence, and in fact, his confidence greatly increased. To his wife, he expressed, it still made him mad and depressed to see Mordecai sitting at the gate refusing to bow down. And in fact, his wife had said, let me suggest, go make this request. Since Mordecai won't bow, he should not be allowed to live here now. He should be hung somehow. Haman bought that thought, thinking it's the best shot he's got. He'd not be delayed. A gallows he made, thinking Mordecai would die as soon as the king could be swayed. But that night, the king couldn't sleep. He got up and took another peek at the report of the assassination investigation. In reading the report, he discovered the evil plan had been uncovered by Mordecai, who had saved his life. The king thought, did Mordecai receive any commendation or any compensation or even thanks and admiration? When he realized nothing had been done for that brave someone, he determined he'd come up with a wonderful plan to honor that man. So the next morning, when Haman came and entered the court, he was anxious to report that the gallows have now been completed for those who refuse to bow. The king wasn't really listening, because what still filled his head was the report he had read. So the king asked Haman, what should be done for a man the king wants to honor? What's your suggestion? Haman thought, it surely must be the king's thinking of me. So he answered, give him a royal robe, sit him on the king's horse, send him out, parade him with the proclamation, here's the one the king honors. Haman got surprised when he finally realized the king was speaking of Mordecai. So when the king saw Esther enter in, he asked her again. The king said to Esther, do you have any requests? Yes, she expressed. She explained that her people, the Jews, had been sold for their annihilation. So the king asked, who would be the cause of such a final condemnation? She pointed right at Haman, who became totally undone as he heard her say, he's the wicked one. So the king then replied, hang him on the gallows. You know, the one he made for Mordecai. Hang him soon and hang him high. Thinking he'd build it for someone else, Haman was the one who'd be hanging there. And in fact, his 10 sons also on the gallows were hung. But God's commandment-keeping people, the Jews, were spared. Now, in fact, the king appointed a day for the Jews to avenge themselves on their enemies, and that day is still celebrated as it has been for centuries. After all, Haman's plan had been foiled, and Esther showed great fidelity, which is a rarity. They call it the Day of Purim, and they celebrate with personal acts of charity. Purim means lots, and Haman had cast lots to determine the date that he would carry out his plan for the Jews' extermination. But now it is used by the Jews for a grand and grateful celebration. Thank you.